Hello everybody, Chris Smartage, Brotherhood of Light Show current YouTube channel, and we're going to do a movie review on the film this week, Idiocracy, and I think it's very important with the election coming up to study what could happen in the future. Let's check it out. Okay, here it is, written and directed by Mike Judge. Got it right in the film Idiocracy in 2024, comparing events of 2024 to his predictions of the possibility of future events in 2505, a classic comedy. And so he's going to predict that, for the comedian's sake, that everybody in 2505 is completely dumb. Okay, so that's the premise for this movie. Okay, so Mike decided to write this movie in 2001 and probably wrote it 2001, 2002, 2003, maybe finished it in 2004, and it was made in 2005. Okay, so he predicts the future 50 years later. So the premise for writing the film, he watched the movie 2001, in the year 2001, and these two top panels are pictures from the movie, and it shows this clean, beautiful, modern, futuristic world, kind of like the Jetsons' home there. And then, but he takes a look around, and what he sees this happening in 2001 around where he's living, or in the United States, is these giant Walmarts, these giant Costco's, and the Jerry Springer show where these people are duking it out, and the audience is like this pagan ritual, just cheering them on. And as Springer sits back and pits these people against each other, and the thing ran for 27 seasons, and it was really popular. And so he kind of sees the decline of a certain, population of the United States, and he decides to take that approach, like we're declining, we're not getting more technological, we're getting more simple. So these panels on the left are cartoons when I grew up, and this sort of breaks this movie down. It's the Jetsons and the Flintstones, and the Flintstones live in bedrock, and the Jetsons live in that modern floating apartment. And so it, is he going to go with the Jetsons or is he going to go with the Flintstones? Well, he goes with the Flintstones. So let's get on to the next panel. So here's the promo shot, and it's a spoiler alert. I'm going to tell the whole plot and story. It's a very simple movie, written, directed by Mike Judge. And the characters, I'm going to refer to them as the characters they are in the film. Rita, Joe is the main character, and Frito, and there's people with food names in the future of this film, which is kind of funny. So he basically wrote it in 2004, and he advanced 500 years, and he's predicting what you're going to see in 500 years. Well, now it's 2024, so I'm going to compare what's gone on in the past 20 years to what he's predicting. So that's what we're going to take a look at as we examine this film. So it's like the second scene in the movie, and what we have here on the left is the kind of corporate couple, the metrosexual couple that will probably work in some kind of computer programming situation. And they got super high IQs, as you can see, and they're just not ready to have a baby. And now it's 5 years later, and they just don't want to have a baby because the market's so screwed up. So they're these intelligent people that just don't want to have children yet. They're more professional. But meanwhile, over here, Mr. Football Guy with a 78 IQ, he just wants to pregnate all the cheerleaders, and so he starts on his path, and you can see he's got 4 or 5 of them pregnant on the right here, and then 30 years later it branches out. Now he's got 20 or 30 different children popping out all over the place because he's just going wild. And one of the scenes and special feature, he's not using protection. So, that's Judge's, reason what's going to happen to the population. They're going to get overpopulated with these low IQ people, and the high IQ people are not going to recreate children because they're too busy with their professional careers. So what we have here is the yuppie lady on the left, and she ends up, her husband dies masturbating to try to make a test tube baby, but meanwhile, 75 years later, Mr. Football Guy down there on the left has had 100 offsprings in 75 years or whatever. It's as you can see, it's just the pie, the chart, the tree of life has just blown up. Okay, so I'm going to use these characters represented. These are people that are in public, that you really know what's going on with them. They're not, and nothing's hidden. I don't have to do research to say that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are two of the biggest stars in the world, and they're going out and they don't have any children. And so they're sort of, Judge has kind of got it right there. Now, meanwhile, the woman down on the right is Lauren Boebert. Now, she is a congresswoman from Colorado. And, okay, so her story is she married this guy, this big 6'6" guy, and he got arrested for exposing himself in a bowling alley to minors. Meanwhile, when she was 16, she got pregnant with this guy. She had 4 children, which they're in the picture right there, 4 boys. And then the guy in the Green Bay shirt had, as soon as he was old enough, 17, 18, he got one of the local girls pregnant, and they had another baby. So now Boebert is 37 years old. So in 21 years, they've created 5 children. And meanwhile, the ex-husband has been arrested for abuse to the children and abuse to Boebert, and taken away and divorced. And meanwhile, the son in the Green Bay Packer turned 18 and broke into people's cars, stole their identification, stole their wallets, tried to go in a store and charge things while wearing a logo of the restaurant that the family owned, and is just now in all kinds of trouble, dealing with all kinds of charges, and multiple credit card thieves and identification stuff. These are like felonies too. And I guess he's 18, so who knows? But it's just, you can see how now, if all these kids do what Lauren did and have children at 16 like the son did and she did, or at young ages, they will probably have 25 children in another 35 years. So, the super sport couple up top, or entertainment couple, maybe have 1 or 2 children. They're going to have 25 children probably, if they follow the same path as their mother. And okay, now the other thing is, Judge didn't know this stuff, but there's, and this is terrible to talk about, but there's autism. So the facts with autism is, back when he wrote the script in 2003 or 4, it was 1 out of 100 kid or people had autism. Now it's 1 out of 37. So it's almost 3 times as much, or 3 times as many people are having autism as they did back then. And if that continues, now, not necessarily autism is making people dumber, but it is handicapping them in some way. And some it is, making them really difficult to, keep normal jobs and stuff. So if it continues on this path in 20 years, like it's tripled, in 500 years, who knows how much autism will be around. So that's kind of scary. The other thing is they're now banning books, okay, in schools, because in this movie, nobody can really read much. They're not very literate. So that's a new trend that's happening, like in Florida. And then and then this person reviewed it. I watched a bunch of reviews on this movie, and said, oh, they're just picking on the southern states and they're blah, blah, blah. They're this southern accents in some of the characters. But the red states that have the abortion bans with incest and rape are going to have, more children, unwanted, unplanned parenthood children, and not be able to get abortions. So that's going to create a larger population in those areas. So, that's something he didn't even count on, I don't think. Okay, the next scene here, we've got Joe. Earlier, he's the main character. He is a librarian in the military. And we've got Rita, who's a prostitute. And we've got the officer in the middle down there. And he has gotten in with a prostitution ring and gotten Rita for a year to do this experiment with the two people. Now, the reason he picked Joe is because Joe's got the most average IQ. He's average in every way: height, weight, brain, everything. So Joe is just an average guy, so they're going to use him, and they're going to use her because she's just a street person who, is kind of like trading this thing for getting out of going to jail. So the officer's top secret thing is he's going to take these two people and he's going to put them in these frozen chambers and hibernate them for a year and take them out. And that's his top secret thing. And so Joe is sitting there with Rita, and he does not realize that she's a prostitute. He thinks she's an artist. He's just so average and dumb and so naive that he can't figure out that she's a streetwalker. So they get put in this chamber, and it's top secret, and then this guy gets busted for being in the prostitution ring, getting having too much fun with the girls there. So they shut down the project, and the two cryovac coffins get thrown into landfill, and the military at this somewhere gets dissolved and gets taken over by a private police force in the future, which I could see that happening. Okay, let's get to the next one. Okay, Mike's next prediction. Well, here's this chart, and you can see that from 2005 to 2025, which is right now, it's gone down a bit, and that's what I'm kind of reporting on. And but it goes for 500 years and gets really crazy. So they are piling garbage like that. That's a real shot on the right. And so what happens in the movie is there's this giant garbage avalanche of 2505. But if you can see these other pictures here, now these are, I'm talking about regulations. There was not this administration, but the one before it, they got rid of 112 regulations. Now they've only brought back 12 of those. So there's 100 regulations, which could be like toxic waste or, the waste out of factories, or there's a million of them, but they're all those kind of things: air pollution and emissions from cars, stuff like that. And we still have 100 of them that have been let go. And if you can see, there's all these garbage trucks on the left lined up, and they dump, and then they cover them up because, it's really an operation. I watched it on the internet how they do landfills, because they have to just daily dump thousands of gallons of garbage and then cover it up so it doesn't pollute, and the birds don't go in it. And it's really interesting. But so there's just the technical aspect of it. So regulations obviously have been cut off in the 500-year thing, and there's a garbage avalanche. So the avalanche comes tumbling down through the city, and one of the coffins comes flying through Frito's window, and Frito is watching TV. He's got a toilet built into his easy chair. He's got a Brondo water system, so he doesn't have to get up. He can just suck on a tube. And he's got his big bowl of goo there to eat. And everything is run by this commercial It's all commercial. It's all food is by Carl's Jr. Brondo is everything you drink and feed your pets and animals. And it's all on your TV, and you have a miniature television screen in the middle or a smaller one. And he's watching like this hee-haw where like the donkeys kick a guy in the butt and he falls down, that type of stuff. So, it just starts to show how dummy down everything is. So Joe gets thrown out of there and he goes to the hospital. He checks into the hospital, and there's a bunch of funny scenes in there. And he looks out the window and he sees total disarray. So this is what he sees when he looks out the window. He sees a total failure of infrastructure, and the freeways are collapsing, the buildings are collapsing, there's garbage everywhere. It's just a disaster, pollution's coming out of factories. So if you don't have regulations, if you don't have regulations and you don't have infrastructure, stuff like this is what happened in New Orleans. They're building a Hard Rock Cafe. They paid off probably the inspectors. And in the middle of the construction, 5 stories of it collapsed on itself, which you can see in these pictures. So it's quite similar to what it looks like in Joe's world. It could happen here. And so there he is wandering the streets, and he ends up getting in trouble. So really, we haven't had an infrastructure bill passed for like 20 years since this thing was written. So he's kind of onto something there too. But I tour with music bands, and the roads have just gotten really crazy. All kinds of rough stuff every time you hit a bridge because there's the infrastructure. But at least there's been an infrastructure bill passed. So you got to think, you want to keep that infrastructure going. We don't want to end up like this world. Now the FDA has been bought up. That's the regulation thing, and Brondo's taken over. So you got the gooey bucket of food and then the vitamin drink, and that's what you live off of in this future world. And these people are, well, you can look at them. They're what they look like in the movie. These are hospital workers and a guy who's a video director. So that's your characters, what they've ended up looking like in 2505. So there's the Brondo label to my left, and that has taken over the corporate. And the movie has Fox News. I don't know why, but they do. There's these. So basically, everything's become sexually oriented. Everybody's IQ is down, but their sexual drive is still going like crazy. So there's all this like profanity and nudity, and the newscasters are wearing barely any clothes to get people excited, so they'll watch them. So this is another degrade of society, which you could possibly see in things like Pornhub over there, which has become very popular in the past 20 years. So Joe gets arrested because he doesn't have a barcode on his arm. And Rita is out working the streets, and the customers are so dumb, she's just collecting money and not putting out. So she's enjoying her profession, and Joe gets taken to the court. So Joe's in court, and Frito's his lawyer, lo and behold. And just basically a kangaroo court. It's kind of like the Jerry Springer show, and the audience is there just to cheer you on and see you get convicted. So he ends up going to jail, and they give him an IQ test, and he gets carded. He gets named not sure. Okay, there's his ID card for the new future society. All right, so then he goes back. He grabs Frito, and he grabs Rita, and they're going to try to find a time machine because he figures he's in this future, and there's got to be a time machine because that's how he got there. He escapes from jail by, I got ahead of myself, by when he's getting in line to be checked into jail, he says, "I'm checking out," and they go, "Oh, get in the line, dumb shit," and then he talks the guy that's checking him out to go look his record up, and he runs out of jail, so he escapes from jail. And then now they go look for the time machine. So on the way to the time machine, they're going to stop by Costco to get a train out of there to go to the time machine. And the Costco is 4 miles long. So now this is the corporate takeover. This is the Walmarts and the Costco taking over the future. Now, right here is the world's largest Costco. It's 2,350,000 square feet, 235,000 square feet. It's twice as big as the Costco that I go to. But now the ironic part of this 20 years later, there's no more mom and pop stores in the town I live in. It's all Costco, Walmarts, Target, Home Depot, Lowe's. I mean, those are the stores I go to. I don't go Safeway. I don't go to. There's no small supermarkets or anything. There might be some specialty stores, but so it's really turned into this corporate world already. 20 years later, I can imagine 500 years from now. So Joe gets caught because they see him he gets ID'd because it's like a police force, and there's computers everywhere that can spot you with your barcode. And but he gets sent to the White House. Now, there it is up in the upper left. It is the white trash house with the above-ground pool, the garbage in the yard, the dead lawn, the dead trees, satellite dishes. And then he meets the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, Secretary of Energy, Secretary of Education. And there they are. They're all dumb as can be. And they're all sponsored by Carl's Jr. And so they tell him, in the Oval Office, Joe, you are the smartest man in the world. Well, how do you know that? You passed you had the highest score on the IQ test ever. So now he's the smartest guy in the world. He's going to meet the president. So in comes President Macho Camacho Mountain Dew, and he is a 5-time all-star wrestler, celebrity president. And he's not a president because he's smart. He's a president because he's the strongest guy around. He's a champion. And so now we've seen the game show host president, and there's just a similarity to the story. Now I'm sure that Judge had no idea when he made this that there was going to be a celebrity president actor who has a SAG card, like they're guys that act like presidents but don't really know the job. So anyway, that's just a fun parallel, and everything's corporate, everything's got logos, everything's run by Brando. Fox News is a propaganda corporate station that just and it's just the whole society's like that. The American flag has logos all over it. The people's clothes have logos all over it. Okay, so Camacho brings him to the House of Representatives, introduces him to the House, and says, this is the smartest man in the world, and he's going to end all our problems. And now this is the only gun that you see in it now. If these people had guns, they'd be dangerous. The guy uses a gun to get order in the court kind of thing. And then they take him out on a parade, and he's going to get a pardon for his jail time, because he's going to help the president. Sounds familiar, huh? So the problem they're having is the crops won't grow. So Joe rounds up Frito and Rita, and he's still trying to get to the time machine, but he can't get there because he's got all the secretaries watching him. So he realizes that they're watering the crops with Brando. And Brando has electrolytes, and these are all the chemicals that are in electrolytes: sodium, calcium, magnesium, and potassium. And especially the sodium, if you spray salt on plants, they won't grow. So he tells the cabinet to spray water on the crops, and they will grow. And the joke is, you mean water from toilets? So after some time period, they don't really disclose it, maybe a couple days or a week at the most, the crops don't grow. So Fox News reports on it, and it's the mob rules. And then the CEO of Brondo goes on TV and says, "We're going broke. We're losing stock. I'm laying everybody off," because they're not using Brondo on the crop, so they don't have to make as much Brondo. And the crowds go crazy. They're going to storm the White House and the Capitol and attack Joe, because he's been now, he's the fall guy because the crops won't grow and it's his fault. So he goes to court, and he's going to be executed by tractor pull, okay, which they call rehabilitation. So it's kind of like a blood sport. It's kind of like a rally where everybody's riled up and they want to see this guy get killed. They put him in this car chained to this rock, this old little car. And they got these big tractor pull things out here, and they're going to smash him. And if those don't kill him, Beef Supreme will kill him with a flamethrower. And there's Beef Supreme. He's like a wrestler. And the crowd's going wild. They just, they always want blood sports. They just want revenge because the news says he's a failure. Sounds familiar, like somebody says something about a race and then there's bomb threats and stuff like that. So, we really got to be careful, what kind of news we spread around. So anyway, he's getting attacked, but somehow he escapes. The monster trucks crash into each other, but Beef Supreme is like cooking him and with the torch, and he's about to get killed. So Rita looks out the window and sees that the crops are starting to grow because they've been watering everything. So she goes into the booth where they're recording and ends up recording, taking over the booth, and hires this guy with a camera, gives him a bunch of money and says, "Go shoot these crops." And so he goes out and he goes to a prostitution place first because he's got money, but then he eventually shoots the crops just in time to save Joe, because it shows up on the big screen inside the arena where he's being sacrificed. And there's two of me in this one. And just in the nick of time, Camacho sees him and saves him from Beef Supreme. And he's the hero because he's got the crops growing. So they decide to have a huge party in the White House, okay? And they make him vice president. Macho makes him vice president. And here we have the corporate chief having his McDonald's and Burger King and Pizza Hut feed in the White House when the government got shut down. So it's almost just straight out of the movie. There's all this fast food because they only eat Carl's Jr. And if you're going to eat food, burgers. And that's what they would order for this party. And then, so it's just so funny. And then there's Lincoln overlooking, and then they got these beautiful, candelabra there on the table with all this junk food for the football team they're celebrating their victory. It's just hilarious. So anyway, I had to throw that in there. Just, it's so similar to what they show in the movie. And so now he's wearing all the new, advertisement clothes and everything made out of nylon. So Frida takes him to the time machine, and it is a carnival ride that shows the history of the United States, and they got it all wrong. Dinosaurs fighting in World War II. But anyway, there it is. And he realizes that it's just a ride, and he's stuck as the President of the United States. So here is Joe and Rita, and they have the 3 smartest children in the world. And now and she's eating the goop, and he is now become the President of the United States, and he is giving all the genius people the 2-finger salute, the redneck salute, and there he is. He's President of the United States. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a couple the DVD covers and the credits, who the actors are, and then my intro slides. for the end here. So I'm going to sign off, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Watch the movie. It's really funny. I don't think my critique of the film is going to ruin your good time watching it if you've never seen it. Take it easy.